Okay, welcome, TouchDown 101. This might be a little shorter than I initially planned because this is the third time I've tried to record this video. Issues with the recording software, but that's not for you guys to worry about. Anyway, today on the agenda is a very basic profile for TouchDown. I'm not here to teach you all the ins and outs of HTML, CSS and JavaScript. If you want to learn those sort of things, there's plenty of reference material on the web. You can buy books, all sorts of shit that you can find. My mission, if you want, for today is to allow you to create a very basic profile, to insert a couple of images, to add the functionality to those images so that you can interact with them and send the commands to your TouchDown web server, which is already preloaded here, top left. And send commands to whichever window is currently active, be that a game, be that in this scenario we're going to use Notepad. So yeah, let's make a start. TouchDown web server, I said, is already preloaded, it's already started. I've got the PC TouchDown web client loaded on the right hand side, so I can interact and record it for you when I output it to Notepad, which we have preloaded here. I'm not going to do a lot of the typing right now. I'm going to do a lot of sort of copy and paste, so you'll see it and I'll explain it. When you download the files to go with this tutorial, you will get the blank template, which is obviously the white page as you see there, and the completed article, so you can if you do need to look at the code, if you think you've mistyped something, then it's there for your reference. So the first thing we need to discuss is how are you setting this up. So within your TouchDown folder, your profiles get stored within the data and then the docs folder. I have called the example file, creatively example.html. I have my images in a specific images folder, which I'll briefly show you. They're not pretty, I haven't spent any time on them. They are literally 5 images with some random text font thrown over the top of them. Obviously the select all doesn't even fit within the bounds of the actual button, but it's here to for the purpose. It's not meant to be pretty. In the scripts folder, I do have an extremely basic JavaScript functions library. The only thing is contained within that, which I will show you in a couple of minutes, is a function to send a macro to the server, a function to create a pause if you want to string multiple macros together, but you need a bit of a pause between them, and a little bit of code in there which allows your browser to do the requests in the background, i.e. you're not waiting for it to happen. As soon as you've clicked your button, it sends you the request and your browser isn't stuck hanging waiting for a response. It will continue regardless. That helps us get away from having to have pages reload, and there's numerous other benefits from that, but again, that's the de facto way of doing things in TouchDown now. Myself and a couple of other members of the community sort of got our heads around this reasonably early on, but I've never got around to updating the documentation for it, so consider this your introduction. So again, there is another function in there which is going to be used for a later tutorial, which is just having images flash or rotate, however you want to call that. So when you click a button on your device, the button that you've pressed will update with a new image, or flash and then go back to the original image. But again, that's for a later tutorial, but it's in there ready for next time. So let's go back to our example folder. The next thing we really need to discuss is the way that you're going to edit the file, the HTML file. Now, there's good and bad to this, because personally, as a web developer, there's times when I want to do things in a notepad friendly way, if I want to be interacting with a lot of JavaScript code, obviously that's more code based anyway, so I'm going to want a text editor. But if I'm designing something that's visual, then I want a visual editor. Now unfortunately I've not been able to find a visual editor for HTML that is anywhere near as good as the product that I use, which is Dreamweaver. Unfortunately it's quite an expensive product from Adobe. I wouldn't recommend people go out of their way and buy Dreamweaver just for TouchDown, because again it's a ridiculously expensive purchase for for the usage that you're going to get out of it. If you do have any interest in HTML or web design in general, then I would recommend it. If you're quite happy with creating pages using a text editor, then I would suggest something like Notepad++. Personally, that's my text editor of choice. Dreamweaver does include a text editor, so you can look at it both ways. So in this video, you're actually going to see it from both sides. So I'm going to just bring that up now. So I'm actually using the latest version of Dreamweaver, which is Dreamweaver 6. Earlier versions will look very similar to this, and I'm currently using the split view, i.e. on the left hand side of my screen I have the text of the page. I have it as a code, if you will, and on the right hand side is the visual section. That's going to show me how the profile that we're going to create should look to some degree in the browser. It's not exact. Some things will look right, some things will look slightly wrong, and as you get more involved and you understand more about HTML, you'll start to see and notice when things don't quite match up with the visual side in Dreamweaver versus what it actually looks like in the browser. But again, that's not for this, it's for your own personal development. The first thing I want to mention about the example file that I've created here is there's nothing in it. As you can see, it's completely white, it's completely blank on the right hand side, but there is some text on the left, so let's just go through that briefly. A HTML page is made up of various elements. If you go through this line by line, the first line of the page is declaring a doc type. That is telling the browser what the standard of HTML that we're currently using, so that it can interpret the rest of the page in line with that version of HTML, because there is various versions that have been around along the years, the most prevalent ones being probably 4 and 4.01, and now as we're getting more into sort of the iPhone revolution, if you want to call it that, HTML5 is becoming the sort of de facto standard. It's been around for a while. Excuse me. It's been around for a while, but as more and more smartphones are actually having their apps built in HTML5, it's becoming much more widely used. Moving on from the initial doc type declaration, we have the first tag, which is the HTML tag. That's where the browser knows that HTML code will continue from this point, and if you look on the bottom line, it then tells it with the forward slash that this is where the HTML content ends. So you've got a nice clean open and close to the HTML content. Within that HTML content, you have two further sections. We have the head section, which I'm just going to briefly highlight for you, which is there. That contains all information that's relevant to the browser, not necessarily relevant to the user. So the character set, again, in this situation doesn't really matter, but it's there for just because it's meant to be there. The title is what your profile will show in the browser window, so on your device, on your screen. Generally a web page will have a title at the top. That is where you define that. So currently I've got it just says example, obviously you can call that whatever you know. Desrat's magnificent profile, or some crap like that. The next line is an external link to an external file. In this case, the external scripts library, JavaScript's functions library that I mentioned a moment ago. So again, it's got a nice little opening tag, which this is the opening, and then the close of it. And this has a couple of attributes to be assigned. The first one to tell the browser what type of script it is, so in this case it's a JavaScript file, and then of course the actual source of the file. So source is shorthand for SRC, shorthand for source, and that is what we call a document relative link. I.e., you don't need the full file path like you would for a file on Windows. C drive / program data, all that jazz. You just need to know the location of that file from the current file that's loaded, so in this case the example.html file. So as it says there, we're going within the scripts folder / we're going to go and load the td_functions.js file, and then we're going to close the head because that's as much information as the browser needs to do its job. Now we need to start looking at the visual side of things. So that's where we come to the next HTML section, which is the body section. Now you can define all sorts of fancy stuff for the body, you can put backgrounds in and all that palaver, but again, if you want to do that sort of thing, there's plenty of tutorials out there to show you how to do that. We're going to try and keep this as basic as possible. The one thing I do want to point out to you is that the body already has something in there. Now, as you can see, that's what they call a divisor tag. It's given it a name of ID, which is your target div. Now, this is used by the JavaScript code. If this isn't in there, then your macros and pausers won't work. Simple as that. It's required by the JavaScript library. It needs to be empty at all times, i.e., you can't start putting things in here. It needs to be completely empty at all times, otherwise it will break. And that is it. That is our starting point. So, without further ado, let's crack on. So, within Dreamweaver, again, I'm going to do it the easy way in Dreamweaver, but it will show you the code as we go along. The easy way to insert an image onto your page in Dreamweaver, funnily enough, is using the insert menu. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to insert an image, that first one there, and I call it button 1 as it's alternate text, because an alternate text is required to be HTML5 compliant. And there we go, we have a button, an image on the page. You can see it's updated on the right hand side in the visual editor, and it's also updated on the left hand side in the text editor. So let's just separate that out from everything else for a second and break that down for you. So again, as in anything with HTML, it's all revolves around what they call tags. In this case, the image tag or img tag. Some tags have to be closed by using a / close tag, like the body has a / close, the HTML has a / close, but image doesn't. It's self-closing. The browser knows that when this final bracket comes in, that's the end of that tag. So again, as with the JavaScript links up here, it has an attribute of source. It obviously needs to know where this image is located to be able to load it. Again, we're using a document relative link. So in this case, we're going into the images folder, we're loading the image that's called black1.png, and Dreamweaver is smart enough to know that that image is 128 by 128 pixels. If you do need to have that image show at a different size, and obviously you can adjust those to your liking. Just briefly show you that. Doesn't look particularly pretty, but you get where I'm going with that. If you need that image to look slightly different size, or it's not quite right, then obviously you can edit it there. And I've lost the quote mark. So there we go, back to normal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up some things here. This is the w3schools.com website, which discusses all about the HTML standards. So again, I've got the page up at the minute that's talking about div or division tags. Again, div tag defines a division or a section in a HTML document, just separates it. It's usually used for styling, for CSS. Again, you'll probably get into that later. Then we've got a section on images here. The sections you want to pay attention to is the definition and usage. So the image tag defines an image in an HTML page, and the image tag has two required attributes, source and alt. So we have done that on that. And finally, we've got the A tag, which is the next thing we're going to do. We have a button there, but now we need to make it interactive. We need to make it do something, and we're going to do that by using this A tag, which, as you can read there, defines a hyperlink, and under normal circumstances is used to link from one page to another. Now, we all know what hyperlinks are. We use the internet on a daily basis. It's something you click and it takes you somewhere else. Now, with TouchDown, we don't want it to take us anywhere else. We want it to perform a function. We want it, when you click that link, instead of it taking you to the next page, we want it to do something. We want it to send the macro to the server. But we're going to use this linking system. So the attribute, as it says there, the tag starts with an A. So let's do that now. So we're going to enclose this in an A tag. So A. And Dreamweaver's smart enough to know that I need to close that. So we now have a link, but it doesn't do anything, doesn't go anywhere. So if we go back to the W3 Schools page, you can see here the most important attribute of the A element is the href attribute, which indicates the link's destination. So that's the next thing we need to do. We need to give it that attribute. So in the opening tag, we're going to space href equals and then double quotes. The link, the function that we're going to use is going to be put in those double quotes. So the function, we need to tell it that we're going to perform some JavaScript now. So we need to type the word JavaScript, and I can type, and then a colon, not a semicolon, a colon, and then the name of the function. Now in this case, we're going to perform a macro, which is called macro. Then we need to tell the JavaScript function what information that macro is going to perform. What's it going to do? We do that by sending it information within a pair of parentheses and then a semicolon to end the command. So if I was to run that now, it'd not do anything because the macro is empty, but that is how every macro starts. So we now need to tell it what to do with that macro. We need to tell it that it needs to perform some, we're going to make it write out some text. So we're going to put in two single quotes because we're within double quotes at the minute. Within the href attribute, there's double quotes encircling the function that we're performing. So we need to use single quotes inside that. So we've got single quotes, and then we're going to write the text that we want it to write. So in this case, we're going to just going to say write some text. And that is the first function done. So again, we've inserted an image with this. Let me break it down a little bit. We can see each part individually. So we've got an image that we've inserted. It includes the source attribute telling us which image to load, what the height and width of the image is, and also an alternate name for the button. We've then enclosed that within a hyperlink, and we've used the href attribute of the A hyperlink to give that a JavaScript command. So that's it. That is one button built. So if we to quickly save that, I'll just tab out, bring up my little notepad window here. I refresh that TouchDown web client that I've got preloaded there. You can see we've got a nice button there that says text on it. We've already got the TouchDown server loaded. Make sure that the notepad is primary. Click the button. TouchDown servers receive the command. Output that command to notepad. So let's do that a few more times. So I have got a couple that's pre-made. I'm just going to pinch those. Let's just bring that back onto one line. So we've got two more buttons there. Again, they follow the same system. They're the same size, they're the same designs, so we know they're going to align correctly. The macros are built exactly the same. The links are the same. The alternate text is obviously the same, apart from we differentiate between them with the numbers. But the macros are slightly different. Again, these ones aren't actually writing out some text. They're performing a combination macro. In this case, select all is the keystroke, Control and A. Copy is Control and C. Now, going back to the original README for TouchDown, you can see that we've got a table of how to perform these sort of functions, and if we're looking up here, you see that the upwards arrow, upwards caret, whatever you want to call it, performs a control keystroke. So these functions here, Control A, select all, Control C, copy. Okay, so let's get a couple more. So if we get the next row of buttons, so we actually want another row. So now we've got 6 buttons, but they're all trying to fight for space on a single line. So let's put a line break in there. So a line break is a simple little tag. It's just a opening brace, BR, and a close, and that puts a line break wherever you put that. So we've put it after the third. So they're all in line. They're all aligned. They all look symmetric. It's nice and pretty. And again, as we go down these macros, the first one is, again, it's just a Control and V, as we've done up here. They're all following a theme here. Control and X on this one, and then the very last one is the only one that really differs, and that introduces the pause command for the first time. We're going to output some text. We're then going to have a 2.5 second pause, and then I'm going to output some more text. So that again, it introduces the pause, and it also introduces the chaining of commands within a single hyperlink. So again, the hyperlink starts with the word JavaScript, then the colon, the first command ends with a semicolon, and then we're going to move straight on to the next command. But this time we don't have to write the word JavaScript till the colon. We're going to just go straight on with the name of the command. So in this case, pause. Self-explanatory, creates a pause. Again, create that, put that in there, end it with a semicolon, and then we're going to add another macro. So again, whenever you're chaining them together, you need to make sure that the semicolons between each command, each function. And again, that just reads the first macro. We're going to send more text, then pause. It's going to wait 2.5 seconds, and then it's going to kick in with the second macro, which says and now more text. The other key thing you need to notice on that line is that the pause command does not have any sort of quotes within the parentheses. The 2500 isn't encapsulated by single quotes. There's no double quotes in there because it doesn't require them. Whenever you're dealing with a number for pause, if you put those in quotes, it's going to think that you've sent it a string of text, and it will create an error. So if you're sending a pause, remember to remove those quotation marks. So yeah, that is it. That's the profile, as far as we're concerned, complete. We've got 6 buttons. They've all got separate functions. We've got one that sends text, one that selects all, one that copies what's currently selected, one that pastes what's in the clipboard buffer, one that cuts whatever's selected, and then the final one, which is a second amount of text, but it's in 2 parts. Text, pause 2.5 seconds, and then a further block of text. So I've saved that. I'm just going to quickly refresh the web client that we've got up there, and bring up the notepad, and then we'll show you the functions. So first thing, write some text. Good, all good, works, fine. Select all. Again, it's highlighted the text in Notepad. We know that command's worked. We're going to copy it. The web server says it's copied fine. The function's come across fine. Has it actually done anything? Let's find out. Paste, 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 paste. So yeah, we know that it's copied it fine because obviously it's in the buffer. We know it's pasting fine because we've now pasted it 3 times. Let's select all again. Maybe we want to get rid of that. Let's cut that out. So that command works. Obviously we're happy with all that. Last thing to check is the final one, which should be an amount of text, a pause, and then another amount of text. So there's the first, in as pause, and there's a second line of text. Again, that works with any chaining of any commands you want to do. Obviously, in the profile that I beat for Army, it's single keystrokes, but there did need to be a slight delay between key presses. If it is just a small delay, you can actually adjust that in the web server itself. There is settings to be able to change the key delay. There you go, delay between the keystrokes and how long the key is actually depressed for. So if it's only needs an additional amount, it might be worth adjusting them rather than having to add them into the commands on your profile itself. But that's for you guys to play around with. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that is enough to get you people thrown in there using the JavaScript method. It should be simpler all round, to be perfectly honest, for people trying to track bugs, because the JavaScript library itself is sort of separate from the profile creation. Again, it's just things like making sure that your href link tags, the whole thing is encased in double quotes, and then your macros within are using single quotes, which does go against some of the stuff that's in the original README. Again, at some point I will replace that with these video tutorials. This is video tutorial 1, very basic profile creation. The next one is going to involve a little bit more in depth with multiple profiles, so multiple page profiles, sorry, should I say, but within a single page. I know that's sort of going against what I've just said there, but we're going to do it as a tabbed system. So you're going to see multiple tabs across top, or much like you would have seen in TouchBuddy. So you'll be able to separate your button panels, if that's what you're going to call them, into separate tabbed sections, so you can get more in your profile without actually needing the physical real estate, screen real estate, to show hundreds of buttons. And also, because we're using it within a single page and it's all JavaScript linked, all the content will be loaded when you load the page for the first time, so there's no shouldn't be any latency involved on reloading images and things like that. But again, that's for the next tutorial. That's probably going to take a couple of days to put together. But for now, I've been Deseret. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you very much for your time, guys.